We're back here on National Geographic Weekend. I'm Boyd Matson. I have a public confession to make. I have a mistress, and I've had her for 20 years, and she's very seductive and alluring, and every time I see her, she reveals something new that makes her even more attractive than before. And it's all the fault of Dereck and Beverly Joubert, two of our National Geographic explorers and residents. They introduced me to Africa, and I've been hooked ever since. And that's why right now we are on location in Botswana, where we first met 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Can't believe it, Boyd.
The Jubars have made numerous award-winning wildlife films for National Geographic over the years. And on my first visit to their Botswana camp, I was given some lessons in the key to their success. First, spend an excessive amount of time living with wildlife. In those days, Dereck and Beverly accomplished this by practically living out of their red Land Cruiser for days on end. The other big lesson was to get as close to the wildlife as possible without getting hurt. Rules, as you will soon see, the Jubars are still putting into practice today. So Dereck, you and I are showing the wear and tear. Beverly is unchanged.
Well, I'm just living. I'm living on this, the euphoria of this place. But that's very kind of you to say that. I don't think it's true.
This is, to me, I try to come every year, and it's like feeding the soul. You've worked here in this country for more than 30 years, and it still is attractive to you, Dereck.
Every single day is fantastic. You know, every day we spend here is not really a day wasted at all. So we're out here working in these sort of conditions, getting up close to elephants like we just saw, and every day is fresh and vibrant. Keeps us alive.
Well, here's the thing. You showed me a little trick that I didn't know was possible till I came here, is that you can get very close to lions. You can be right beside them as long as you're in the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, so the minute you get out of the vehicle, they view you as prey or as a threat of some description. So, but inside the vehicle, we're encapsulated within this whole thing, which is really just a moving termite mound or tree or something else in their world.
But of course, Dereck and Beverly like to get pictures that are different than you could get if you were a tourist stuck in your vehicle. And Beverly, can you explain then why on my first trip you had me get out with lions on the ground?
Well, Boyd, that is really the only way. You need to feel alive. You need to feel the adrenaline pumping through you. But at the same time, you have to have total respect for the animals. And so we're very cautious in wanting to get that low angle and to be part, of their surrounding and all of that. But we're very cautious in not to create any discomfort with all the animals, not only the lions. And so I think that is key. But I'm pleased that you were so open when you came 20 years ago. I wouldn't say naive because I
trusted my guide.
I remember that scene. Where you were out on a termite mound and there was a male lion coming in behind you.
That's right.
I remember sitting there going, this is going to be great. This is going to be okay. This could go bad.
And by the way, I was left alone on the ground. Dereck and Beverly pulled away to get a shot, which meant you needed to be further away to make the shot even more dramatic. And I thought there's no way they could get to me in time.
Yeah. No, well, we couldn't have. It would have been very dramatic.
But you were rolling. That was a good thing. But then this very day, here in Botswana with Dereck and Beverly, we see 4 male, 4 female lions on the hunt, big ones. And they come to water and they're about to cross. We get on the other side. We didn't have to get out of the vehicle. And Beverly, the shot was so amazing. I had little tingles, if I can say that. Watching these lions cross the water, it was just exciting. Is it old hat to you?
No, never. In fact, as we were crossing ourselves and then trying to get into position to capture the whole moment, I mean, I always seem to get an adrenaline rush. It's obviously... As Dereck said earlier, it makes us feel alive. But, to be in the right place at the right time is often not easy. And it doesn't always happen that we have a moment like we did this morning that was just so remarkable. And, lions don't often like to cross water. As you could see, as they were crossing, they were hissing because they could feel that there were probably fish swimming around. But, of course, they're nervous of crocodiles.
That's the big thing.
The light was great as well, I must say. It
Yeah.
was a great crossing.
Yeah, it truly was.
Because you've been out here doing it so long, you know the behavior, generally what to expect, get yourself in the right position more often than not, and you can have a perfect moment. But do you ever screw up on the camera and get back and think, what was I doing?
Yeah, no, most of the time, actually. No, the things that we've seen and not filmed would be amazing. So, we've seen over 2,500 lion kills now, and maybe filmed 200 of them. So it always happens in the wrong place. But you keep going for that perfect moment, that perfect crossing or that perfect kill. So that's what keeps us out here. But that's the other thing that about National Geographic, Boyd. This is not something you do on a weekend. You dedicate your life to it, and that's the expectation as National Geographic explorers and filmmakers.
Yeah, you have to. It's not. I mean, you fall in love with the place. You'd like to be here for 30 years, but that's also the way to get the shots. Yeah. You can't just crank off 10 and say, all right, let's move on to the next thing, the next scene. It takes patience.
It takes a huge amount of patience, but it's not only about getting the shots. So obviously, being here and capturing unique scenes is the reason that's started our love affair for the area. But then we very soon realized that if we didn't start being ambassadors and actually speaking out for these wildernesses, we could lose them all very, very quickly. And that's really what's driving us, from here forward, is how to protect them. This area, for instance, 7 years ago was a hunting concession, and we managed to take that over and stop the hunting from day one. And now we're seeing the changes. For instance, we have about 7,000 elephants that are now moving through the area, whereas 7 years ago, they were petrified. They would not be seen during the day.
Because there was a hunting camp. I remember 20 years ago, and by the way, we're with Dereck and Beverly Joubert, National Geographic Explorers in Residence, and the people who introduced me to Africa 20 years ago in this very area on my first trip with National Geographic to Botswana. And I remember we heard gunshots, we saw the hunting camps along the water, and I thought, this is insane. It's criminal. In effect, even though it was legal, it just seemed morally wrong. And you finally put a stop to the hunting by buying the concession and turning it into a hunt with your cameras.
All right. So a couple of things. First of all, we were able to save up enough and buy this company and the concession here, which is about 350,000 acres. So it's a reserve. It's a huge reserve. Shut down the hunting on the very first day, and then have seen the wildlife numbers build up and calm down. I mean, you've seen us drive through the middle of a herd of elephants. 15, 20 years ago, those elephants would have attacked us. So, I mean, that's the transition. But the other thing about this is that this year, for the first time, all hunting has been shut down in Botswana, all over. So all of these concessions are now reserves, and there's not a gunshot that's allowed to be fired. And so we're about to see a major, major transition in the wildlife numbers here, and in the health and the well-being of wildlife here.
And a lot of this is because of the films that Dereck and Beverly make, and they get broadcast on National Geographic. People see it, they understand the crisis, they understand the problems, animals that are under threat, and some of it they just fall in love with the wildlife, and that's really important. You got to hit people emotionally.
Well, Boyd, we've done all sorts of films, but the ones that we enjoy most and almost our tactic now is to do a film about characters, about animal characters, about leopards or lion characters that audiences come to know the same way that we've come to know them. And then at the end, reveal to people why we need to be concerned about those animals. So if we start off and say lions went from 450,000 down to 20,000 in our lives, everybody sort of leans back. Whereas if you tell the story about a lion and then give those numbers, then people understand why each one is important.
The conservation is important, but I want people to know that there's been another big change in the 20 years since I first came here. That camp, our toilet had an elephant jaw for the toilet seat. It was out somewhere over a hole in the ground. Now you actually have flush. Here's the bigger. You have flush toilets in some of your camps, internet, and ice.
Right.
I think ice may be the most important of all of that.
Yeah. Look, the other thing is that we got tired of getting tooth marks on our butts.
No more elephant jaw. But it was very rustic. You've got high-end camps, but you also have a place where I'm staying right now, Selinda Explore, which has that feeling. It does have flush toilets, but it has that you're in the bush. It's almost hearkening back to Africa 50, 60, 70 years ago.
It truly is. And, you know, you're right on the Selinda Spillway, which is in constant change of drying up. And then, of course, through the wet season, the Selinda Spillway starts to flood again. And that's where we can go and canoe very close to elephants. It is the most incredible experience. It's really blissful in so many ways, because as you're canoeing silently, and of course you really do become part of the flow of the river. And Dereck and I have recently been filming elephants this way through actually this whole season, and it's really been remarkable. But that place is all about exploring, being on the ground, and being part of the wilderness. And I think that is what you're picking up right now.
But just one question, reflecting back to those 20 years ago, taking a rookie to Africa out, and then Dereck and I walk into a watering hole with elephants. Now, you always hear stories about elephants charging people. Do you have anything to worry about here? Or better yet, do I?
Sure we do. Both of us do. If it was safe, it wouldn't be worth doing, boy. We move this way. You're going to have to just watch me when I go over this grass and onto this bumpy stuff.
Okay.
Because now it's fairly critical. If I fall, we're both in trouble. I'm looking through this tiny monitor, so I have no idea how far these elephants are away from us.
They're close, let me assure you.
That's your job. Let's see if we can get any closer.
It's fairly smooth in front of you. There's a little bit of a rise right there. Let's see, we've got one staring at us. So what does that mean?
Keep your eyes on him, Boyd. If he does anything strange, let me know about it.
Would you even do that today?
It was a test, Boyd. You know, I was testing your mettle. There's a famous scene where Livingston and Sir Richard Burton meet in the London Mission Society, and they're not sure if they're going to get on, and they start testing each other and showing scars and say, I got bitten by a snake here and I got bitten by a crocodile over here. So we were doing the same to you.
I survived.
Yeah.
Botswana has survived. The Jubars survive and continue to make wonderful films, but most importantly, establishing this protected area, the conservation program, and making the public aware of how important it is to save this resource. You can't take it for granted. Thanks for letting me visit again all these years later.
We'll see you in 20 years' time.